So get your wine and popcorn, as this is going to be a long review. Hey, welcome to Wine Club. I'm Stephanie, and this is the playlist where I drink good wine while I whine about bad books. You see the size of this glass? We've got a lot to talk about. Today's offender is, unfortunately, spoiler alert, by Olivia Dade. So, as I say in all my reviews, this is solely about the book, not about the author as a person. I'm sure she is lovely. There are going to be spoilers in this review. If you do want a spoiler-free version of this review, please check out my What I Read in February video, where I do review this, but I don't give away the entire plot. So I picked this up as a fun February Valentine's Day read, and this book was also recommended to me by someone I trust. Rethinking some of that trust now, but let's go ahead and see what the book promised first. Marcus Castor Rupp has a secret. The world may know him as Aeneas, I'm totally going to butcher some of these characters' names, star of the biggest show on television, Game of Thrones, but fanfiction readers call him something else. Book Aeneas would never. Marcus releases his frustrations with the show by writing and posting anonymous stories about the internet's favorite couple, Aeneas and Lavinia. But if anyone were to discover his online persona, he'd be finished in Hollywood. April Whittier has secrets of her own. A hardcore Lavinia fan, she's long hidden her fanfic and cosplay hobbies from her real life, but not anymore. When she dares to post her latest costume creation on Twitter, her plus-size take goes viral. And when Marcus asks her out to spite her internet critics, truth officially becomes stranger than fan fiction. On their date, Marcus quickly realizes he wants more from April than a one-time publicity stunt. But when he discovers she's unapologetic Lavinia stan, his closest fandom friend, he has one more huge secret to keep from her. With love and Marcus's career on the line, can Marcus and April stop hiding once and for all, or will a match made in fandom end up prematurely canceled? So, unfortunately, this ended up not being the cute Valentine's Day read that I had expected. This was painful. Honestly, really painful. I read up to page probably 190, and then I began skimming. And every 2 pages of even just skimming, I considered DNFing. I was really on the struggle bus with this one. So get your wine and popcorn, as this is going to be a long review. Like I said, this was recommended by someone I trust, so I had really high hopes for this. Right now, this is shaping up to be my worst read of 2024. And again, I mean absolutely no shade to the author, this book has some problems. So, if you're not new around here, you know that romances are not my go-to genre, and this only fueled that fire. I'm sorry. Again, I really expected to like this. The premise is cute. But also, the more I think about it, the more the premise does kind of give me the ick. Like, we've got this girl who is obsessed with this character, and then the actor who plays him, who he also writes fan fiction of his coworkers. Yikes, my dude. It honestly would have been a little bit different if he was just a fan of the show too, or maybe even if he was like a writer and kind of removed. But I'm not loving this. I'm not loving that this actor is writing about people that he knows on a different level and that they're just paid to do a job. So like I made a joke when I was reading the synopsis, the show in this book is an extremely thinly veiled Game of Thrones. It's so thin, I can see right through it. So yeah, our hero is an actor named Marcus, who is basically a fictionalized version of Jaime Lannister. Marcus's character is in a relationship with like the Brienne character's stand-in this universe, Lavinia. And I am for sure gonna butcher the character's name, so again, apologies in advance. And then our heroine of the book is April, who is a Lavinia stan. So April writes fanfic for the Game of Thrones show and writes sexy stories about Marcus and Lavinia. April doesn't share this hobby with any of her friends or coworkers, but is about to start a new job where she can kind of let her freak flag fly, so she shares a photo of herself cosplaying as Lavinia on Twitter. And she's nervous about sharing this photo for 2 reasons. 1, people will know about her secret obsession, and 2, people are going to be mean, because April is a big girl. And the comments start rolling in, making fun of her being plus-sized, and so Marcus sees this and steps in to defend her and says she's beautiful. Some troll basically dares him to go on a date with her, and then Marcus accepts and then DMs April. So the suspension of disbelief is starting to stretch really thin, but I'm still going with it. You've still got me. They go on their date. April is a bitch to him from the get-go, which we'll get into this, but she can barely seem to tolerate his existence and hates every minute of this date and everything that comes out of his mouth. And then she just tells him, hey, hi, I write sexy fanfic about your character, but I'm envisioning you while I write this. Excuse me? Back up. She doesn't tell anyone about her fanfic, not even her family or her close friends, but she tells the guy she writes it about to his face? Okay. Whatever. So we get our first, big reveal. So, the synopsis gave away, Marcus also writes fanfic of his own character, which, that's kind of weird. And he and April have been friends in the fanfic world for years, without knowing it. So now he knows it, but he's not going to tell her. For contrived reasons that are just basically used to stretch out the story. I get the showrunners would not be pleased with him writing this, but unless it's in his contract that they can't really stop him from doing it. They make it seem like it's going to be this big deal and a front page news when I don't know if it really would be. I don't know. And again, I get it. It's just setting up stakes. It's a romance, but just ugh. So going back to this date, April seems miserable. Marcus is smitten and thinks she's amazing and intelligent and beautiful and perfect and the most wonderful person to ever grace God's green earth. So he asks her out. Again. And she accepts. You have spent this entire day bitching and moaning about everything about it and how much you hate him and how much you hate spending time with him. But then you're going to go out with him again just because he's hot? Hypocritical much, April? She thinks he is so shallow, and yet she wants to go out with him again because he's a celebrity. Who's shallow now, April? So then, they go on their second date, and they're immediately holding hands, and she likes him so much, and they're basically about to bang right there at this museum. Did I miss something? How did they go from 0 to 100? I understand Marcus's point of view more because he knows who April really is. He knows the context of their entire relationship. But she sure as shit doesn't. She thinks he's vapid, but then she's all flirty and ready to pull her pants down for him. Make it make sense. And a reason that she thinks he's so shallow and stupid is because he's into fitness and nutrition because his body is essentially a commodity. He's an actor. It's part of his job to keep fit for his current role, and he genuinely seems to like exercising and nutrition. Cool, I do too. Comes a point at the end of their date when he simply asks her to join him at the gym, and then they'll go out for breakfast because he just wants to spend more time with her, and this is something that he enjoys doing. She flies right off the handle and goes stone cold with him. How dare he suggest they do an activity together instead of just saying yo dog, I'll meet you at the breakfast buffet because the gym really isn't my cup of tea. She just basically ends the date and stops responding to him. these characters are supposed to be in their mid-30s. I actually think Marcus says he's like 40 or 41. April acts like a teenager. Like, they both do. But I couldn't believe that she couldn't engage in a mature conversation with him or explain why his suggestion hurt her. So then she goes into the fanfic community and writes about fat shaming, which of course Marcus sees because he knows who she is, and realizes why she got mad. As his fanfic version, he writes a reply saying that, he's basically sorry if he ever hurt her, even if it wasn't intentional, and this causes her to think like, maybe Marcus couldn't read my mind and didn't mean the words the way I interpreted them. And boom, they're back together. It's just all so fucking contrived. And then this is where I really started skimming because I could just not take these two characters seriously. Marcus is a doormat and a ding-dong, and April just has no personality besides fanfic and fat. Like, after the little gym debacle, Marcus is so depressed, and I just started laughing because it's so dramatic. Just tell her who you are, you idiot. Your time on the show is done. I mean, you have to listen to this. So this is after she wrote her little fat-shaming thing in the fanfic community. Buccaneus would never responded, even though, again, that's Marcus. And so she's all basically, I guess maybe I should give him another try. So this is on page 186 of my copy. When she'd written him Monday evening, apparently willing to let him emerge from the hole he'd inadvertently dug for himself, he hadn't hesitated or thought twice, not given the misery of their days without contact. The absence of April in his life had hollowed out each and every day. For an hour or two at a time, maybe, he could distract himself from that emptiness. With writing, with reading the scripts his agent sent, with binge-watching British baking shows alongside Alex. But in the end, there he was, always, alone in his echoing LA home. Lonely, missing a dear friend, and more. Whatever else they were becoming together before he'd tripped one of her personal landmines. He didn't know. And again, she didn't take the time to explain, hey, hi, this makes me really self-conscious if you continually talk about the gym. But again, or she's also just not being an adult and understanding, he has talked about this a lot. He's obviously very interested in this. He's not trying to shame you. He's just saying, this is something I'm interested in case you want to join me so we can spend more time together. Ugh. So he's really worried about telling her about his fanfic, as again, it could hurt his career. And I get that. But again, like I said earlier, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. It's honestly more weird that he just writes it in the first place. He's writing fanfic about the character he plays, thinking about his coworkers as their characters. It's just really weird. So Marcus has two secrets. So one, he's not as dumb as people think he is. He just pretends to be, so people kind of leave him alone or don't really expect much from him in interviews. He even calls himself the well-groomed golden retriever. This man is 40. It's a flimsy secret or a flaw at best. The other, he's dyslexic. It obviously hasn't hindered him too much as he's a very popular actor and apparently a good fanfic writer. This is another thing that I think the public reaction to finding out that he's dyslexic was blown way out of proportion to add to the stakes of this book. No one would care. How many people are dyslexic out there? This book's ridiculous. So I have to talk about Marcus for a minute. Because obviously Marcus is a character. I get that. But he's a ridiculous character. He is very much a wish fulfillment version of a man. He's perfect. Ridiculously so. He kind of reads what a preteen girl fantasizes her future husband to be like, and it just got really cringy. Because he is gorgeous, he's wealthy, he's popular, but he's shy, he's a nerd, and he's smart, but he's also ready to throw down at any time. He's so awed and amazed by everything April does, and cannot believe that he is lucky enough to have her because she's perfect and never does anything wrong. His life means nothing without her, and his happiness is completely wrapped up in April. April is worth everything, 1,000,000 times over. So on page 322, so this is after another one of their stupid fights. This is just how much of like a wish fulfillment man he is. He'd make it up to her when he saw her mother again. If he saw her mother again, he'd do whatever she needed, be whatever she needed. And in the meantime, he'd give her all the love he could. He'd give her love because she deserved it, and because he couldn't help it. He was so fucking smitten with her. His adoration spilled from him like water from a fountain, or blood from a wound. He exhaled love with every breath. It floated behind him with each step, bright as butterflies in the dark of night. I'm sorry, I can't. Gag me. So there's even this scene where he's thinking about April and his co-stars, who are women, and he gets all like goo-goo-eyed, and like maybe in their company, with their guidance, his path forward in his career would be clearer. It reads so hokey. I don't buy it. I'm sorry. And maybe I'm just cynical. But it was too fluffy and too cheesy for me. So I already said that April read like a young or maybe even new adult character. And Marcus doesn't get out of this scot-free either. Like, there's a scene where Marcus is furious with his best friend for making April giggle. And again, it just reads like a 13-year-old wrote this. So page 257. Marcus glared at his best friend, who merely raised a cocky eyebrow in return. So then his best friend is talking to April, and there it was. She was giggling again, even as she blushed harder. Giggling! And the back of Alex's stupid head should have caught fire from the force of Marcus's scowl. Then, after a squeeze of Alex's arm, so the best friend of Marcus, she let go of him and held out her hand for Marcus instead. He interlaced their fingers immediately and swept past his friend, allowing a surge of triumph to puff his chest just a tad as he stared meaningfully at Alex. Are you a teenager? Are you a toddler? Like, what is that? Like, you're that upset that your friend made her laugh and that you're hoping his stupid head catches on fire? I'm sorry. It reads so juvenile and amateurish. Again, this man is like supposed to be 40 years old. And he's calling the back of his friend's head stupid and wishing it would catch on fire because he made his girlfriend laugh. So as dumb as Marcus is, between Marcus and April, I liked Marcus the best. April? I don't really like her. She is quick to assume the worst in people, thinks she knows best, just steamrolls over everyone, is selfish, has multiple tantrums, and just won't have a conversation about anything. She gets so mad at Marcus for him not having Professor X's ability to read her mind. She just doesn't communicate what she wants or needs and just assumes the worst and then takes it out on him. And again, I've already read his parts of his butterflies floating behind him. He's going to take it. So I read the scene about him reacting to meeting her mom. So before that, there's a scene at her mom's birthday, and April does not speak with her father. They are excommunicated. They don't get along. So fine, whatever. So Marcus knows that she doesn't like her dad, and again, she doesn't communicate what she needs. So he thinks like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep her dad occupied and away from April. That's me helping. April doesn't tell him that she needs him at her side, that she wants him to stay with her. And she is then furious, absolutely livid that he didn't do what she wanted, even though he didn't know what she wanted and thought he was doing the right thing. And so, of course, it's all his fault. So on page 319 of my copy, this is Marcus's reaction to her being pissed with him. He'd thought he understood. Her father was an asshole. and being in his company upset her. If Marcus offered himself as a human barrier, then she could spend time with her mother and escape the home visit unscathed. Simple as that. Only she'd emerged metaphorically bloodied instead. And Jesus, evidently he hadn't helped at all. Best he could tell, he'd hung her out to dry instead. His skin fucking crawled with shame at having inadvertently abandoned her in her need. It was the absolute worst feeling. The worst. Had he simply not listened hard enough? Or had she told him less than he'd realized? Less than he needed to support and protect her? And if so, how could he have failed to notice such a glaring omission? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is his fault that he did what he thought was best? Like, she didn't bother to tell him. How? How is it possible that April never gets blamed and Marcus has to feel like an asshat over everything? They are adults. If April had expectations of Marcus, she needed to clearly communicate those instead of just expecting him to read her mind and hop to it and be at her side. Give me a break. So, to be fair, she at least does admit that she was wrong, but even then, a quote from the book is, her near instant forgiveness was a graciousness he hadn't expected and wasn't certain he even deserved. Are you fucking kidding me? Really, book? Not pleased. Not happy. Not happy with this. He blames himself for assuming and not asking. And again, I'm sorry. Have April's vocal cords been cut? Can she no longer speak? Normally, I am pretty good at spotting Mary Sue's in books, but April was a sneaky little bitch who flew in under the radar. Did not see it until near the end of the book. I wanted to like her and relate to her. I spent many an hour in Charmed and Twilight fanfic spaces. I get it. But April just really rubbed me the wrong way. Nothing she does is wrong. And Marcus just takes all the blame and takes all the weight of everything. So, again, April is a bigger girl. I couldn't tell if this book was supposed to be her gaining confidence or if she already had it. Because it changes with every chapter. And April focuses so much on her weight when Marcus doesn't seem to care. So the book starts out where she's a proud woman and loves herself and loves just all of her and is done making herself feel small and shrinking away to make herself more palatable and appealing to others. Great. But then it focuses so much on her size and like her learning to love herself, even though it kind of seems like she already did love herself. And it gets to the point that she wants to flaunt Marcus in front of other people as a way to show them, I'm fat and he wants me. That is a literal line from the book. She's putting all of her validation as a human being on a hot, thin guy wanting her, even though she's big. Isn't she supposed to have more depth than this? Isn't she supposed to be confident and have some self-respect and realize that a man should love her for who she is? And he obviously does. That's what drives me so insane. This is never an issue for him. So I'm going to get a bit personal here. I was a fat kid growing up. From like 2nd to 7th grade, I was a big girl. I had kids whispering to me that Slim Fast was on sale at Hy-Vee that weekend. I had kids calling me a whale and saying these things to my face, not even just like behind my back. I understand what it's like to have self-esteem issues due to weight and feel like people are judging you because of your size. It sucks. It's really hard. It is really hard, and it's something that you deal with for the rest of your life. But the thing is, in my experience, this is my personal experience. When I was heavier, I didn't notice it or think about it all the time. It's just the way I was. When I did start my weight loss journey, again, I didn't think anything of it because I didn't see myself as a fat kid. I just saw myself as me. I liked me. Why wouldn't other people like me the way I am? But April is always thinking about her weight and her size And the word round is used all the time to describe her body. Round stomach, round legs, round shoulder. I mean, I hope your shoulder is round. They're supposed to be. Everyone's journey with their body is different. And I'm not trying to come for the author or anything, because I feel like a lot of this is from her own personal experience, or what you write what you know. And I feel like that is applicable in this book because it does feel very personal. That piece was done very well. But April's issues with it wasn't for me. I like the rep and the potential for body positivity that was in this. I just don't think it went all the way, and it didn't work for me. It's even worse when we read that April has issues with her mother, and that's real. I get that. I had issues with my mother when I was heavier too, and she was trying to spare me from the teasing that I took. And then, of course, I just took her words the wrong way. I thought she was trying to tell me that I was a failure in some way. I didn't react to it in understanding that she was coming from a place of love because I was a child. And kids do not think the same way that grown adults do. April is an adult at this point. She should be able to look on things and see them in a very different light. And then it's even worse because we find out that April's mom is also dealing with her own body image issues due to her asshole father, well, April's asshole father, who April doesn't even speak to because he's a dick, and he has been making April's mom feel terrible about her body their entire marriage. Ma'am, do you not see that your mom is a victim too? Do you not care that she's been deeply scarred by his words? Yes, her mom does need to work on her approach and her delivery. But come on. At this point, I feel pity for them both. April says that her love for her mom can't save their relationship, and that her mom's love for her didn't justify the harm she's done. And that's sad. That's really sad. Now, I also wasn't a plus-sized adult, and maybe I would feel differently with that experience. I can only come at it from the lens of being overweight in my adolescence and into my early teenage years. And again, I have moved on from that time in my life. It is a part of me, but it no longer defines me. Whereas for April, it is very front and center for her and everyone around her. Even the first sex scene between April and Marcus, and heads up now, this book is very graphic in the spicy scenes. So if that's your jam, you might like this. It just was not for me. The book ends with him going down on her. So it's basically as soon as they get together, it's sex scene, fight, sex scene, fight, sex scene, fight. A lot of sex scenes. So the first sex scene, she's all, ooh, wow, he's so strong. My weight doesn't even pose a problem. Is that what you're thinking? That's what you're concentrating on? Okay. Yeah, like I said, romance is not my go-to. Sex scenes, I think they're really hard to write, as sex is such a personal thing if you choose to engage in it. I think these scenes are very hard to get right for a wide audience of people. I typically find them cringy and awkward, and the scenes in this were just overly long and very, very, very detailed and graphic. Lots of slick spaces and sucking juices off fingers that taste earthy. Nope, I'm good. Again, personal preference. Your mileage may vary, and you may love the spicy scenes in this. Obviously, some people did, because this book is book 1 of a series. So like I said, this book was a struggle. I was bored. I was annoyed. This book tried my patience and my sanity. This was 400 pages that I did not want to read. This also, I don't think, shouldn't have been as big as it is, because there's not a lot of substance here, and even some of the subplots just kind of fall off the page and out of the book. The book was also too twee and melodramatic at the same time. I guess at least April and Marcus deserve each other because they're both drama llamas, and no one else should have to put up with them. It was fluff, and a lot of it just felt cheap and unrealistic. That's it. I wanted more, but the book didn't do the work. It was fan fiction that found its way to a printing press. And Marcus, it's very thinly veiled Game of Thrones. Marcus is clearly the actor from Game of Thrones of Jaime Lannister. It's even hinted at in the acknowledgements. Like, fine, write that story, but don't publish it and make people pay for it. That is a story for one, my friend. At the end of the day, I had to give this 1 star. Sorry. I really went into this with high hopes, as it was a recommendation from someone that I trust. I trust their opinion. But boy, oh boy, was this not the recommendation for me. I wasn't hate reading this at the end. I was hate skimming it. So please, tell me, because I have to get this out of my head. What is your favorite romance book? Tell me in the comments below so I can pick up something that's actually good to read. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time at Wine Club.